with his own words on the tape, but only his own words. She ruled that Liza Chan's statements to the witnesses could be introduced only through her, and only if she were called to the stand. Frank Eamon, one of Evans' attorneys, cross-examined Choi.
Mr. Choi, you've been asked a lot of questions by a lot of people before coming to court today, isn't that right?
Yes.
And one of those people was a lady, Miss Liza Chan, correct?
Yes.
Now, you met with several people about what happened at the Fancy Pants Lounge that night, and that included meetings with Liza Chan in April, the FBI in May, and then again Liza Chan again in May. You remember all those meetings?
Yes, I do.
And you knew at each one of those meetings, the FBI was investigating a civil rights violation, correct?
Exactly.
And you knew, did you not, the investigation was not about what these men did, correct?
Objection, Your Honor. Mr. Choi does not know what the point of the investigation was. This question has no foundation.
Your Honor, it goes to state of mind.
Overruled.
Now, you knew, did you not, the investigation was not what these men did, only whether they were motivated in doing the act because of your friend's race, correct?
I object again, Your Honor. Mr. Choi did not know what the investigation was, and the investigation did not have any particular aim in its course.
Mr. Choi may answer the question. This is cross-examination.
You knew that, right?
I had a vague idea.
A vague idea?
Yes.
Sir, you knew it was significant whether any racial remarks were being made inside the Fancy Pants lounge that night. You knew the significance of that, didn't you?
I knew the significance, but I did tell the truth.
Choi acknowledged that he did not recall using racial terms when he spoke earlier to Liza Chan and the FBI. In trying to explain why not, Choi echoed certain familiar themes. Asian Americans do not make waves. Asians do not complain about discrimination, and Asians do not use race as an excuse.
And sir, can you explain to us why when you met with Liza Chan back in April, you didn't tell her that you heard the word nip?
Okay, because that was when the prosecution at the state level, ended. So I was in Toronto for my internship, and I got back and didn't know what happened, and all of a sudden this lady lawyer came to me. So I wasn't prepared, not as much as I wanted to be. I don't ever want to mention discrimination, and she was going for the criminal portion of the case, and she didn't ask me about discrimination. As I thought about it, more things popped up to me.
So, to be clear, since April 1983, the more you thought about this case, the more of these remarks are just popped up.
It depends. I mean, it all depends on what's popped up in my memory. All of a sudden, little things, a few things came back to me.
Well, let me clear it up for you, if I may. When you met with Liza Chan back in April 1983, you knew that was after these men had already been sentenced to probation, correct?
I knew that, yes.
And you remember Liza Chen asking you, quote, nobody actually heard anything. I mean, actually heard how it started. What started it? And answering, you said, I would believe that Evans may have made a smart-ass remark, quote. Do you remember telling her that?
Yes.
And I guess you're telling us today that in April 1983, you didn't remember the word nip had been used.
Yes.
Okay, now you remember an interview also in 1983 of April, being asked by somebody besides, that they didn't say anything like Chinaman, things like that type of thing, just a four-letter word, and in telling them in response, I had heard not that. I didn't hear that. I don't think they made any racial remarks whatsoever, nothing. Did you tell Liza Chen that?
Yes, I did.
Now, when you met with the FBI agent in May, you didn't remember yet that the word nip had been used, correct?
No.
Mr. Choi, am I correct? The first time you mentioned the word nip was in front of the grand jury?
Yes.
Okay, at those meetings with Liza Chan that you had with the other witnesses, you remember Gary Koivu and Bob Sorosky?
Well, we had a meeting. Yes, we did.
And you each talked about what each of you had seen and what each of you heard that evening. Isn't that correct?
Yes, we did.
And you remember that you asked Gary whether he heard you say anything about, we are not Japanese?
I can't recall. That was a year and a half ago. This is just like 3 conversations. Everyone was talking. We were like, what do you remember? Well, do you remember that? That was the extent of the meeting.
And at that meeting, some people indicated they didn't remember some things.
Yes, and a few things, okay? I mean, somebody said, okay, well, you did that. And I said, I remember that. Yes, I, kind of have an idea now.
And the purpose of that meeting was to get your story straight, to get them all together for this case, isn't that right?
No, sir.
Now, did you receive any advice from anyone about what parts of the story you were going to tell this court and what parts you weren't?
I didn't receive any advice to that effect. I was advised to tell the truth and the whole truth.
Sir, isn't it true that you believe that Vincent got angry and overly reacted in this case?
I don't think he overly reacted.
You didn't tell Liza Chen that, in your opinion, he overly reacted? I'll look at page 11 of the transcript.
Well, let me think. I mean, if I did, I made a mistake. He didn't overly react. He tried to ignore any racial remarks. We tried.
Sir, I'm referring to right here.
Oh,
You recall saying that then, don't you?
did I? Well, I read it. Yes.
Now, sir, at the time you said that, you were describing to Liza Chen back in April events, to the best of your memory, were completely devoid of any racial provocation. Isn't that right?
Well, there was a time, okay, for Chinese. We try not to, shall I say, react. Usually we can take a lot of things. There was a time when I just asked basically in the bar, how did he grab him? How did he swing the bat? And she wasn't really looking for, racial remarks. If you go there, it wasn't a very good place to go in the first place. I didn't want to do anything. Plus, I tried to shun all the racial things away from it. I had a few experiences, mostly when I dealt with my classmates at school, but a few times if somebody drives by and just told me chink, I tried to brush it aside.
In addition to other eyewitness testimony, the government persuaded the court to introduce other crimes evidence. That the defendant, Evans, had in 1976, 8 years prior to the killing of Vincent Chin, called a black man, Willie Davis, a nigger and a black son of a bitch. The court agreed to permit the evidence over ferocious defense objection, which claimed that the evidence would unfairly prejudice the defendants in the eyes of several of the African American jurors and the large African American community in Detroit.
After the government rested, the defendants put on a brief defense case. Evans himself chose to testify. Here's a direct examination of Ronald Evans by Lehman.
Sir, what happened at that bar that night?
Sat down, I got a sip of glass of beer. This black dancer was dancing. I remember comments coming from across the stage directed at her, telling her what a crappy dancer she was. Okay?
And did you see who was making those comments?
I really don't know who was making those comments.
But you knew they were coming from across the bar, however, right?
Yeah,
What did you do then?
I don't like seeing people picked on for a starter.
So what did you do?
Made a comment to the effect that, don't worry about those guys. Show them what a good dancer is.
And did you direct those comments to anyone in particular?
Nah, just the dancer.
Now, when you made those comments, do you recall referring to people across the stage and using the term fucker or motherfucker?
I don't remember distinctly.
And when you used those words, did you, in your intention, mean to insult anyone or provoke anyone?
No, sir.
What happened next?
I remember at this point, the Oriental that was sitting the second from the end saying something to the man on his left, which I couldn't pick up, okay, and he got up.
Okay, at that point, did you notice that he was an Oriental person?
I probably did.
And you recall testimony in this court that Vincent Chin stood up and said, "I don't care, don't call me a motherfucker."
Yeah.
Do you recall hearing that the night of the fight?
Not distinctly, no.
Do you recall hearing it at all?
No, I don't.
And do you recall testimony in this court that you stood up and said, "Big fuckers, little fuckers, we're all fuckers"? Do you remember that testimony?
Yes.
Did you say that?
I don't remember saying it.
When you saw the person say something to the other gentleman on his left, what's the next thing that happened after that?
I really didn't pay much attention to him. I was watching the dancer. He proceeded around, and I guess the next time I was really aware of him was when I turned around and he was standing directly in front of me.
What did he do?
He punched me.
Now, up to that point, sir, did you call him or anyone else for that matter the word chink?
No,
Do you recall ever telling or calling anyone a nip?
no,
Now, do you recall saying anything about being out of work or words to that effect?
no.
We now move to Evans' testimony that he and Vince were driving in their car when they saw Vincent and Jimmy Choi outside of McDonald's.
All right, what happened next?
As he drove by, Michael seen him sitting out front on the steps of whatever it was that was out there, and sitting there laughing. It must have been real funny to them.
How did you feel at that point?
Pretty angry.
Why?
Same reason, I guess. The man had sucker punched me. He was responsible for splitting Mike's head open, so I was just angry.
So what did you do?
Told Mike to park the car.
When you got out of the car, did you have the bat with you?
Yes.
What did you do then?
Ran around to where they were sitting and I hollered at him.
And what did you do?
I said, "You sons of bitches."
What happened?
They jumped up and started to run, and I was on top of it, and I took a swing and caught Chin in the arm.
You took a swing with the bat,
Yes, sir.
and what happened?
More or less just stopped because they took off running.
What did you do then?
Mike came around and he caught Chin in the middle of the lane of traffic out there.
What did you do when you saw that?
Well, when I seen Mike scuffling, it just flashed in my mind. He's going to get hurt again, so I started toward him, and something just happened. I really don't remember from there on what did happen.
Sir, do you remember hitting Vincent Chin?
Not that I remember.
Were you trying to kill Vincent Chin, Mr. Evans?
No.
Do you remember what you were trying to do?
No, I don't.
What's the next thing that you remember?
I just remember looking up and seeing a revolver pointed at me and a man saying, "Drop the bat."
The prosecution to cross-examine.
Well, Mr. Evans, you told us a lot about that night. But now you tell us that you blacked out, and you can't tell us much about the beating. Is that right?
That is true.
Let me show you government's exhibit number 14. Is that the bat you used to kill Vincent Chin?
I can't tell you that. I don't know.
Could you show us how you were holding the bat when you asked Gary and Bob, "Where is your friend?"
I can't tell you that. I don't know.
Now, when you were in the car saying, "When I catch these Chinese guys, I'm gonna bust their heads," you hadn't blacked out yet.
I never said that.
When you found Vincent Chin and said, "There they are," you hadn't blacked out yet.
I don't know.
So only when you caught up with Vincent Chin and started swinging the bat at him, that's when you blacked out. Is that your testimony?
Well, just prior to it.
You can't remember hitting Vincent Chin in the head so he couldn't run away?
No.
You don't remember hitting him in the arms?
No.
You can't remember hitting him in the chest and the shoulder and the face?
No, I can't remember.
You can't remember hitting him in the head as he lay there lying on the ground?
No, sir, I can't.
You can't remember telling the police that you are sorry, but look at what they did to your son? You don't remember that, don't you? You do remember that, don't you?
Not really.
You had the presence of mind to think of an explanation, didn't you?
I don't remember being asked for an explanation.
Mr. Evans, if you would take the bat, maybe it would bring back something.
Objection, Your Honor. We had enough of that. You haven't meant to harass the witness at this point.
Ask a question, counselor. That wasn't a question.
Yes, all right.